Please join me in welcoming Councilman Chris Ridley.
All right. Hey, good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Good. And congratulations. Welcome to the Leadership Foundation family. Woo, not everybody's that excited. No, sincerely, you should be congratulated. And let's give Jenna a round of applause for Jenna and all the work that she does. For all the different classes, all that the Leadership Foundation does. I am so thankful to the foundation. It changed my life. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later on, but just truly congratulations, because you could be doing something else. The pandemic is still going on. COVID is real. But you have decided, no, I'm going to take the time to better myself, to learn, become more civically engaged, and that's something you should be celebrated. So give a round of applause for yourself, for all the work that you have done over the past few months. And so we think about this, I asked this question, are you ready? And it's a rhetorical question because some of you have already been serving, but this is a great organization or program to get more focused on the way you want to do that. And it's important that we have more people like you because there's a lot going on in the world. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this. I mean, wow. There's a lot of crazy out there. And we need people willing to step up to the plate and make that positive impact, make that positive difference. But you know, when I think about it, look at this photo. You know what the solution to our problem just might be women. Women might be the solution to all of our problems. That's right. That could just be it. That's all we need. We need women. The next mayor of Denver is going to be female. I firmly believe that. But so now that your blood pressure is raised, I want to go ahead and go to the next slide to calm you down a little bit. And so I have a helper. And so my helper, who's going to be on the next slide, he'll come back later in the presentation to help demonstrate a point that I want to make with you. And this is my son. I know, he's cute. This was his first grade photo. And I know you're thinking, man, he dressed like this for first grade. So he comes out of his bedroom and he's like, all right, Daddy, I'm ready for school. I'm like, buddy, why do you have it dressed up? He's like, Daddy, that's how you dress. I know. I mean, you just sit there and you just melt. I mean, that's for those of you who have kids, you get it. Like 5 minutes, you love them, and 5 minutes later, you'll give them away for a ham sandwich. But this is CJ, and you'll see CJ later on in the presentation. So first thing I want you to think about as we're talking about this, tell your story. So what does that mean? Let's go to Kosovo. I'm a lieutenant in the United States Army, platoon leader. We've got about 30 soldiers in my platoon, and we're on Kosovo, a peacekeeping mission. And as we're sitting there talking amongst one another, so if you're not familiar with the military, as a lieutenant, I'm the officer, and I have about 30 enlisted soldiers in my platoon. And we're just bantering back and forth, and they say, you know what, officers, you're just born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And that hits you. And I realized my soldiers didn't know my story. They knew I was Lieutenant Herndon, they knew I was from Kansas City, but I wasn't willing to talk about anything more than that. So it's important for you to tell your story, so let me show you mine. So this photo was taken in Des Moines, Iowa in the early 1980s. So if you start in the upper left-hand corner, you've got my Aunt Lori, my Uncle David, you got great-grandpa, you got my dad, great-grandma in the middle. Next to her is my mom, with the glasses is grandma. You see the cowboy hat, that's grandpa. That kid being held up, that's my cousin Chauncey. Holding him is my Uncle Eric. Got my Aunt Missy, peeking around the corner is my Uncle Mike. And then on the bottom right is my cousin Melissa. She really hates that I show this photo, eating her shirt. And then you've got my older brother, you've got my Aunt Leslie, and then you see that really cute, adorable kid tugging on his shirt. And oh, by the way, if you look at that kid's forehead, and then you look at that kid's forehead, there's no denying that is my son. I tell people, big brains are in my family. But you go back to my story, and you go to that kid. So, okay, this is my story. What's the point of my parents? I come from a broken home. My parents divorced when I was in middle school. And when I say it was an ugly divorce, the type of divorce that the only time I remember them speaking to one another was in the courtroom. I can talk about my Uncle Mike, upper right-hand corner. My closest uncle, we talked about so many things when I was a little kid, died of a heart condition when I was in elementary school. Up and passed away. My Uncle Eric, who's holding his son, my cousin Chauncey, sadly made a lot of poor decisions as an adult. Spent most of his life in and out of prison. sadly. Drugs, he would come to my grandparents' house when I was there, yelling and screaming. They wouldn't let him in because they weren't certain how he was going to react. My cousin Chauncey made a lot of bad decisions as a teenager, got involved with gangs, was the suspect in a murder, and then 6 months later was murdered himself. So this is where I come from. So if I was to tell you, point at that kid tugging on his shirt, what's going to happen to him based off of what you know, what would you say? Well, you probably wouldn't say that he graduates from West Point. And that wreath on his chest is from the dean's list. You probably wouldn't say he goes on to run for Denver City Council and welcomes President Obama to his district. And even further, you probably wouldn't even say he ends up at the White House. So for those who have been to the White House, this is really cool. So the way that there's the official residence where the president comes down the steps and you're on one side and there's this barrier that the Secret Service dares you to jump over. And so you're sitting there, and I'm there with, at the time, Councilman Lopez, now Clerk Lopez, and so I give him this camera. It's like, hey, take a photo when the president comes down. So the president comes down, he starts at one end, he's shaking hands, he's shaking his hand, he's shaking his hand. He gets to me, click, that's the picture. Now, I'm pretty sure the president was blinded by the flash, and I have no idea whose hand that is. But let's go back. Let's go back to this kid. Most people wouldn't have expected that. It's important for you to tell your story so that people will know how hard you worked to get to where you got. Because they will look at you, they will look at your success, and they will assume it was easy. It's important for us to tell that story. And what stops us from telling the story is shame. And here's the interesting thing about shame. Picture a swamp. That's what shame is. It's stuff not where we live, but what we had to go through to get to where we are. It's vital you talk about that, because going through that motivated you to get to where you are. Somebody right now is going through something you've already been through. Your story could be the one thing that gets them through. But you know what, Chris? It's uncomfortable. Absolutely, it's uncomfortable. But you know what? Are you telling this story to lift up yourself or to lift up others? That should be the key. You've got to tell your story. Next thing I want to talk about, finding your passion. So here's a question for you. If money didn't matter, what would you do? So typically things come up into somebody's mind. So if nothing came up in your mind, I'll ask you a follow-up question. What do you do with your free time? Because here's what happened to me. Moved to Denver, working in the private sector, but for the first time, I'm volunteering a lot. Bought my house in now Central Park, formerly known as Stapleton. I got on the registered neighborhood organization. Never did that before. Became the outreach co-chair. My church is in Mount Bello, True Life Baptist Church. I volunteered to be a tutor when there was Mount Bello High School across the street for some gentlemen to help them improve their math and language arts skills. I facilitated a financial literacy course for some members of my church, helped them improve their financial literacy scores. I was volunteering. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And then it hit me, I missed public service. Because in the military, service is what you do. You wake up, you throw your uniform on, you go out, you serve your country. I got out, and I wasn't serving anymore. So I was gravitating back to service. And that's when I realized service is my calling. It's my passion, and I want to find a way to serve. So what is your passion? What is the answer to that question for you? And when you figure that out, do everything you can to do that, to find that way. And for me, it was to serve. So once you figure out that passion, you've got to get ready. Because guess what? Here comes the cliff. So at the time, I was a store manager for Walmart. Those of you who aren't familiar, old Cinderella City, the Inglewood Walmart, that was my store. And so I decided to run for Denver City Council. And so I told my boss at the time, this was in January of 2011, hey, I'm running for city council, I just wanted to give you the heads up. He said, great, congratulations, best of luck. So we're now around March or April. Things are not going well. Campaigning is hard. It is a grind. And so I'm campaigning full time when I'm not working, and then I'm working, I should say that backwards, working full time. When I'm not working, then I'm campaigning. Nothing's going well. So I reach out to my boss and I say, hey, can I have a leave of absence? We're about a month away from the election. I just want to focus on this, and then I'll be back. Swearing in is not till July. We can figure that out later on. He's like, okay, come and see me in about a week. So about a week, I walk into my boss's office, and it's my boss, and it's Crystal. You're probably wondering, who is Crystal? Crystal's the HR manager. So let me say this to you. If you ever have a meeting, and it's your boss and the HR manager, it's not going to go as well as you think. I remember going in there with a smile on my face. And so he's like, sit down, Chris, let's take a seat. I'm like, great, let's take a seat. How are things going at the store? They're going okay. We had an inventory that was well, not as well as we would have liked it, but things could be better. He's like, yeah, that's true. That's why I have Crystal here to document that. I didn't catch that at the time. He said, so here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna write you up. Wow. Got written up for my performance. And then he said, if this continues, you're gonna lose your job. I know this is hard, and I could tell you're really bothered by it, you really want to run for office, but we're gonna give you some time off to end the campaign and come back, and we'll be welcome to have you back. So I remember getting up and walking out, like, man, just devastated, angry, all these emotions welling up. So I took that time off, I think it was about a week, and then came back in the following week, and I quit. Just like that. But it's interesting, when you're angry and you're frustrated, I came across this quote that I think is really powerful. If we are to walk fearlessly and tenderly into the crucible of a painful ending, we will find gifts for us there that we never could have seen had we continued clinging to the safety of the familiar. Now, as I look back, it was probably one of the easier decisions I'd ever made because I knew what my passion was. If I didn't know what my passion was, I probably would have clung to the familiar. But when you know what you are called to do, again, do all that you can to get there. But there's going to be a time where you're going to have to jump. And I love the analogy of saying jumping, because once you jump, what's the point of looking up? Gravity has taken hold. Some jumps are big, some jumps are small, but you have to be prepared to jump. And I can tell you now, there were gifts on the other end that I couldn't even have fathomed at that time. But you have to be ready for the cliff. Next thing I want to talk about, staying humble. We talked about all the different leadership attributes that are necessary in society. I tell you, there's not enough humility in the world. Not enough humility in the world. 95% of the time, I want to introduce myself as Chris, because Chris is who I am. Council person is what I do. But sadly, you'll come across so many different people that always introduce themselves as like manager so-and-so, representative so-and-so. They got all these cool titles. And what will happen is, at some point in your life, the titles are gone. Councilman is gone July 16th, 2023. It's not coming back. And if I were to lose myself in that title, what's going to happen on July 17th? It's important that we stay humble. So here's a visual I want to give you. This photo was taken on a boat in the Red Sea. In the military, 3-day holidays in the States are 4 days. It's a 4-day holiday overseas. So we always like look at a map. Where do we want to go? We went to Hurghada, Egypt. And this is when we were about to go snorkeling. And I love this photo because I stood up, and by the way, you know this is an old photo because people don't wear Tommy tank tops anymore. So I stood up, we were about to go snorkeling, the wind's blowing, I got my hair cut, I got my sunglasses on, I probably did some push-ups right before I stood up, like, all right, looking pretty good right now. And they took this photo, and so if I was a superhero and there was a movie, this would be the poster. And we would call it The Counselor, or something silly like that. And I know I lost some of you on the humility front, but just stay with me. And so here's what's gonna happen. This is how people will see you. Because you're successful, you're doing great things, they will see you almost superhero-like. Like as this amazing, mythical person. And that is okay. Because they are looking up to you. You, however, cannot see yourself this way. Because then you're looking down to them. So, how should I see myself? All right, that's a great question. You just see yourself like this. Another snorkeling photo. So for those of you who have snorkeled, you put those fins on, you know how you gotta do that crazy walk to get over to the right before you jump in so you don't fall over yourself? And they're like, hey, Chris, where are we going? And you make the point in silly direction, they take a photo of you. This is how you need to see yourself. As somebody who's just no different than anybody else, who has the same fears, who has the same worries, but just chooses to confront them and tackle them head on. We're no different than everybody else. And more especially, we're no better. You need to stay humble. Now, this is the interactive part of the day. I need 3 people to stand up. I need 3 people to stand up and come right over here. I need 3. Where are the leaders in the room? Where are the leaders? There's Pete, there's 1. Come over here. I need 2.
There's 2.
Number 2. I was like, can we get a female? All right, good. We got, everyone come on over here. Thank you. So what's gonna happen? We're gonna start over. So Pete, you can come over first. You're gonna stay right here. Let's give a round of applause. This is not easy because we're about to play What Did I Get Into? All right. So I am going to start a phrase, and I just need you to finish it. Okay. That's it. And I come bearing gifts. See, this is why you participate. Starbucks gift cards. All right, here we go. Do not take yourself
Too serious.
Amen. Round of applause. There we go. There we go. Do not take yourself too seriously. Come on up. All right. Hi. What's your name?
Hi, Carly.
Carly. And I know Pete. That's why I didn't check. Carly. Pleasure. All right. They get harder. I'm sorry. So you can accomplish so much
By putting hard work and effort into it.
Yes, that was not what I was going to say, though. Hey, round of applause. Round of applause for Carly. Here we go. You can accomplish so much if you don't care who gets the credit. You ever put a whole lot of work into something, and then someone comes up and tells the person next to you, good job? And you just sit there and just fume inside, about to explode. And then there's another time you get this email from your boss or someone else says, good work on Project X, that you did 5 to 10% on Project X, and you write back and say, you're welcome. Here's what I say. At the end of the day, it's going to even itself out. It really will. It's not about the credit, or should I say it shouldn't be about the credit. It's about doing the work. At the end of the day, I'll even itself out. All right, how you doing?
Good.
Brent. Pleasure to meet you. All right, this is the hardest one.
Great.
But I have faith, Brent. You look smart. All right, here we go. You will not get indigestion.
Upset stomach. Is that the commercial? Right?
I applaud you for saying something. That's good. No, hey, round of applause for Brent. Thank you. Hey, all right, that's awesome. You will not get indigestion if you swallow your pride. You will not if you swallow your pride. Pride is a powerful thing. Pride will make you lose your mind. Just do things that a reasonable person would be like, what just happened? Do not let pride let you make a significant mistake. So those are my 3 things. Again, hand for our participants. Thank you so much for doing it. Appreciate that. But wait, there's more. Remember that cute kid that you saw at the very beginning I talked to you about? He's back. So what I'm going to show you coming up is CJ. He's 7 years old now, but we're going to go back in time. His first Easter. His first Easter. So you know some cuteness is about to come up on the screen. So here's CJ. That first Easter outfit. I know. He's cute. He's cute. So now, the next picture, CJ, 1 year from that photo. Still cute, I know. But look how much he's grown. So let me ask you this. How much have you grown over the past year? Obviously, we're adults, so I'm not talking physical. But where's your growth? Your internal, that personal growth. They say the difference between you now and 3 years from now will be the people that you have met and the books that you have read. Not the number of likes, not the number of tweets.
That's right.
How are you growing as an individual? How are you trying new things? How are you pushing yourself? Don't have the same photo 3 years from now. Read books, meet people, make a difference. Make sure your growth is as exponential as CJ's was in 1 year. Last thing, one more thing for you. I don't have a gift card, and no one's going to come up, but think about this. If you don't ask, what's the conclusion to that sentence?
You don't get the answer.
You don't get an answer. Wow, you should have came up. You would have been great. No, it's not it. So anyway, but if you don't ask, the answer is no. Seems silly. If you don't ask, the answer is no. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite shows on TV, American Ninja Warrior. That's one of my favorite shows. I absolutely just love that show. If you've never seen that show, you're not familiar. All these ridiculous obstacles, and they have people come up, and you can never tell who's going to be really good at those things. I mean, you look at someone like no chance, and they just breeze through. And you look at like they got it, and they fall on the first obstacle. So if you weren't aware, American Ninja Warrior has filmed several times in Denver. And as a city council person, we always get emails from the Office of Special Events, like, hey, so-and-so is coming, this thing is coming. So I remember back in 2017 seeing the email, American Ninja Warrior is coming to Denver, right outside the city and county building. It's right where they film. Like, wow, that's awesome. I reached out to the Office of Special Events. I'm like, hey, I heard American Ninja Warrior's coming. They're like, yeah, it's great. I'm like, I know, can I run the course? And there was this pause. And then they said, no one's asked that question before. Let's find out. And so here's what happened. I didn't get to run the course, but the day before they film, where everything is set up, they need guinea pigs. I mean, they just need regular people to go through the obstacles to make sure the real athletes don't get hurt. And so let me tell you this, the water is cold, and they're harder than what you see on TV. But it was so much fun. The city actually had multiple city employees come out and run the obstacles. Just because I asked. I want us to have the mentality, I'm going to keep asking and asking and asking. Because you have no idea what's going to come of you just asking the question. But what if they say no? You're no different than you were 30 seconds ago. But again, it's that pride, it's that I just can't put myself out there. Put yourself out there. You never know what's going to happen. Hey, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Congratulations.